Hey everybody, this is Donald Jenkins, your Master Purpose Development Coach, and welcome to the Skill Set of the Future, where we are preparing you to develop skills for a different classroom. That's right, the classroom that I'm going to be sharing with you today is a classroom that's rarely talked about in many high school circles and many college circles. But guess what? You need to have the conversation that I am going to be spending some time with you today in this video, because one of the things that you don't want to do in this particular classroom, and that is take a selfie that you cannot delete, because you know how it is. We all like to take selfies. In other words, we are living in a selfie craze generation. I'm just like you. There are times that I want to take a selfie, and guess what? I want to put the best selfie out on social media. Even if you're not a social media type person, you still take selfies that you might want to send to your friend, and you want to send the best one that you can send them. So in other words, there's some selfies I'm sure that you've taken, I know I've taken, that guess what? I wanted to delete those. In fact, I did delete them. Well, I'm going to talk to you about a selfie that cannot be deleted. And the reason why I'm going to have this conversation with you today is simple, is that it's important, because in this classroom, you have to come to the front of the room and give an accurate report on purpose. And when you understand the selfie that you cannot delete, you're going to understand how this selfie can affect your accuracy of giving that report that you need in this classroom, that we help you understand how to perform at peak levels in college, in high school, and even when you go out into the world. So let's start with the conversation that we have at the Purpose Development Institute with all of our clients, even the students. We always talk to our students about purpose deficit disorders. Now, we spend time with our parents telling them that all of the advice that they give their children is related to purpose deficit disorder. So it behooves the parent and the child to educate themselves on purpose deficit disorders, because this is a disorder that, guess what, you were born with. I'm sorry to tell you that, but I was born with this disorder as well. So therefore, I began to educate myself so that I can understand how to overcome this particular disorder. Now, I'm going to tell you this is not a disorder that you can go to the doctor and the doctor can prescribe some medication to you. This is a disorder that you need to be able to apply some wisdom, some insight, some understanding as to how you can prevent or minimize the risk that comes from purpose deficit disorder. So here's what I'm going to do in this video, because purpose deficit disorder, what it represents is 8 body parts that are exploited on a regular basis. That's right, there are 8 body parts. You have 8 body parts that are exploited on a regular basis. And what happened is that when you don't understand the exploitation that goes on in these particular areas, you begin to create that selfie that, guess what? You cannot delete this selfie, because it's going to follow you all the days of your life. When you're coming from high school, going into college, that selfie you cannot delete is going to follow you to college. When you graduate from college and you go out into the world, that selfie you cannot delete is going to follow you all the days of your life. And that's why it's important for you to have this conversation, so that, guess what, you will not become a victim of that selfie that you cannot delete. So let's talk about those 8 body parts and what they represent to you and your accuracy in giving this report in front of the classroom. Let's start with the top of your head, because you know how it is when we take that selfie. We want a good head shot. We want a full body shot. We want to make sure that we're getting everything in the picture. All right. So from the head to the toe, we want to make sure that everything is right. Well, guess what? Between your head and your feet, there are 8 body parts that you need to be concerned with as a individual going out into this big world that's looking for you to add value to this world. So let's start with the head crown. In other words, you have a crown on your head. You might be saying, Mr. Jenkins, I don't see the crown on my head. Well, it is called an invisible crown. You have an invisible head crown. And what that crown represents, it represents you being in a specific class of individuals that declare that you are in the class of royalty. That's right. I know that might be something that you may not have ever heard in your life, but you are truly in the class of royalty. And being in the class of royalty means that you have the ability, the authority to exercise dominion over your attitudes, dominion over your character, dominion over who you are as a person. Now, many times you might not be exercising that dominion. I'm sure that you've had those moments, because when I was your age, guess what? I had a lot of those moments as well. And even at the age I am right now, that I'm not going to tell you, I have those moments where it doesn't seem like I'm exercising dominion over who I am as a person. So that's a crown, that's an area of your body that you certainly need to be able to connect to a higher purpose, because the last thing that you want to do is to lose control over who you are as an individual, especially when you're in high school and then you're making that transition to college. Because if you begin to start losing control over who you are as an individual, well, guess what? That self is going to follow you throughout your entire life. You're going to get out into the world, the workplace, and you're going to continue to deal with this thing called losing control, the out of control attitudes and the behavior. So that head crown represents your authority to exercise dominion over who you are as a person. You might be saying, well, what's next? Well, it's your eyes. And your eyes, guess what? They are a gateway to your soul. In other words, you have to be careful of the things that you put into your eyes. You cannot look at everything. And that's the thing about smartphones in today's society. We have access to expose ourselves to things that would take us away from where we want to go in life. Well, guess what? That's a selfie that you cannot delete. So you want to make sure that you have enough insight and wisdom to protect your eyes, to guard your eyes, so that you can only expose yourself to things that's going to lead you to where you want to go. See, I told you, this is called the skill set of the future. It allows you to connect these 8 body parts that's exploited on a regular basis to a higher purpose. Now, the next body part that you need to be aware of is your ears. And many times we don't pay attention to what goes into our ear gates. We hear gossip, we hear things about this person and that person, and we listen to things that we shouldn't be listening to. We put the earbuds in our ears, and guess what? We fill our mind with things that we shouldn't be filling our minds with, and it's allowing you to create a selfie that you cannot delete, because you're programming yourself. You're programming yourself with things that could detract where you want to go in life. Next, you have your nose. Your nose represents your attitude. Guess what? Your attitude, it has a smell to it. In other words, some of you all might be walking into the classroom and you're stinking up the place simply because you have not understood how to connect your attitude to a higher purpose. And that's what this video is all about. That's what developing the skill set of the future is all about, is that you understand the purpose behind you connecting your attitude to a higher purpose. Because if you don't understand how to do that now, you're going to take that same attitude into the workplace and you're going to produce that selfie that you cannot delete. So you might be asking, well, what is next, man? It's your mouth. Because in many cases, we say things that come out of our mouth that doesn't take us where we want to go. We talk about people. We talk about circumstances. We talk about things. And many times what's coming out of our mouth are not positive things. And we're saying things that we later regret because we have not understood how to connect our mouth to a higher purpose. See, what happens is you are exploited in every area that I'm talking about because there's a deficit in your purpose. And you need to understand how to correct that deficit in your purpose. Well, the next body part that we need to talk about is your hands. And that's right, your hands, they represent what you do for a living. If you fail to take authority over your head crown, your eyes, your ears, your mouth, and your nose, then guess what? You have no other choice to make a living but with things that you can do with your hands. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with working with your hands, but in many cases, if you don't use these areas to educate yourself, to value the education that you're getting, then the only result that you have in life is to go out and do manual labor that's not going to pay you what you're worth. So that's the reason why you have to take authority over these 8 body parts that I'm talking about. Now, I've talked about 6 thus far. And the 6 that I've talked about is what I call above the waist living. So you have to understand how to live above the waist. Because when you live below the waist, where a lot of kids and adults are living, then you take that selfie that you cannot delete. Because below your waist, you have your sexual organs. All right. And with your sexual organ, many times people make decisions based upon what's going on in that particular area. And it lead them down a path that they wish that they would not have followed, because they're taking that selfie that they cannot delete. And then you have your feet. Remember, I talked about the parts from the head all the way down to your feet. And you have to understand how to exercise dominion, because your feet represents the path that you travel. So here's what I want to know. I want to know, what path do you want to travel? I want to know where you want to go in life. Because when you understand where you want to go in life and you understand how to connect it to a higher purpose, then guess what? You're going to avoid taking that selfie that you cannot delete. And that's the reason why my wife and I have put together the Skill Set of the Future boot camps, online study, curriculum design for colleges, because we want to make sure that we assist individuals in understanding how to connect all of these body parts to a higher purpose, so that you can maximize your life in college and your life after college. In other words, we want you to be able to go to the front of the classroom and give an accurate report on your purpose. So I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to be able to work with you. And if you're a parent, please make sure that you understand what we're talking about, because all of the advice that you give your child is in relation to purpose deficit disorder. All of those 8 body parts, and I can give you a whole list of things that's related to that we spend time giving advice to our kids. And that's why it's important to go through the Skill Set of the Future boot camp, or to invite us to your institution to speak to the kids in relation to the Skill Set of the Future. So this is Donald Jenkins again. I am excited to be able to spend some time with you, talking to you about the Skill Set of the Future, so that you can avoid taking that selfie that you cannot delete.